So, if I'm being honest, this is not technically a review of the ACOTAR series because one, I was not expecting to do a review. I was just reading it because my plan was I will read one book a month and finish the entire series in 4 months because there are 3.5 books. And then I slugged my way through ACOTAR and I could not stop until I finished the series. So what that meant was that I have thoughts about the series. So yeah, technically this is my ACOTAR series review, which, spoiler alert, I actually enjoyed the series. Hello everybody, Nora back again. So yes, you did hear me right. I am intending to do a video. I'll not even call this a review because I did not take notes when I was reading the books. I did not plan on it. So I do not have any structure. This video will not have any structure. I'll just, spill all my thoughts about the book that I have in no coherent form or fashion because I repeat, I did not set out to do a review for the series. I just read it and then I realized that I had stuff I wanted to talk about the series that I do know that if it was that I was to wait till my wrap up to say it, I would feel pressured by time, and also I would be worried about the eventual length of the wrap up, because you all do know that my wrap up tends to be very long because your girl cannot stop talking about books. So yes, let me just go straight to it. The very first book, of course, I read is, of course, the very first book in the series, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses. Now, this book, when I was starting it, firstly, I knew that someone did mention that it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I like to point out that that word should be used very loosely, because this is barely Beauty and the Beast. This is barely Beauty or the Beast. This is just, I would call this an amalgamation of different fairy tales, because the beginning of it gave me more of Cinderella vibes, and then the Beauty and the Beast, slight Beauty and the Beast, and then there was a bit of Snow White, in the second and third books. So maybe Sarah J. Maas was just like, okay, I'm just going to pick a bit of each of these fairy tales and condense it and present it and let everybody do with it, make of it what they will. And I guess because Tamley, who is the main love interest in the first book, tended to turn into a beast, and in subsequent books did show his beastly nature. That's the reason why a lot of people were like Beauty and the Beast. But I repeat, I do not really see Beauty and I saw bits of Beauty and the Beast, but I do wonder that was the reason why I saw Beauty and the Beast, because I knew what a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Like, if nobody had told me that, oh, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, would I have noticed? I doubt it, because I repeat, she used the tenets and strengths of that fairy tale very loosely. Now, this book was a drag. It took me a week and a half to finish it. It's about 419 pages. And I was bored out of my mind. Sure. Okay. What happens, right? This book tells the story of Farah, who is a human huntress who goes into the forest because she has to provide for her family. Her family fell on tough times, and her sisters and her father were unfortunately very, very useless in providing for the family. And so Farah, this 14-year-old girl, had to start hunting. And as at the start of this novel, she's 19 years old, and she walks into the forest where she sees this beast, and somewhere like their town borders Prithian, which is basically the fairy realm. And so the humans do have an intense hatred of members of the Fae because of the fact that they've mistreated them, they've killed them, they've hunted them for sport over the centuries. And so humans and Faes are no. And so she enters the forest, she sees this creature, this beast, and she kills the beast. Like, for a moment she thinks, she's like, it's probably a fairy, but she does not care because she's, according to the book, filled with so much hatred, and she shoots him. Which was where I started having a problem with the book, because I'm like, okay, I'm certain Sarah J. Maas wrote it on purpose like that, because I actually felt sorry for the the creature she shot, because I'm like, okay, so even if this was a fairy, he was just hunting or just going about his business, you saw it, you're like, oh, this could be a member of the fairy realm, and then you shot it because you were angry. And I do understand the fact that, sure, if my people have been haunted for centuries, for millennia, I would react that way. But we're not given enough time to dwell or to come to terms with Farah's hatred of the Fae before she was just like, oh, I hated him, and so she shot him through the eye. Anyway, she shot the creature, she skins it, and then a couple of days later, another beastly creature shows up to collect the dead. Turns out that she had killed a member of the Fae, and the other creature was coming to collect the debts, in the sense that, oh, there's this treaty that said that if a human was to kill the Fae, then their life is forfeit and they have to spend the rest of their lives in Perithian, which, I repeat, is the fairy realm. And so Farah is kidnapped and taken there. And so we have the premise of Beauty and the Beast, a father who is useless, a daughter who would sacrifice everything for her family, and a beast who takes her, you know, because she intruded on something personal and precious, or rather she took something personal and precious. And I guess, firstly, let me just say, Beauty and the Beast was never one of my favorite animations. I am sorry, although I love Belle, like, who wouldn't? She's a bookworm. She loses herself in books. Like, what lover of books will not love Belle? I love Belle. I just did not like the story. I felt that it reeked of, you know, Stockholm syndrome. Here is a girl who was kidnapped from her family, who had to sacrifice her freedom in order to save her father, and then who over time fell in love with the beast too. You know, I don't understand what the story was trying to say, in that people can change, in that we should look beyond the surface of things, you know, to what is beneath it. But every time I think of Beauty and the Beast, I don't know. I'm sorry, I apologize if it's one of your favorite animations, but it just gives me a bit of Stockholm syndrome vibe-ish. And so, yes, she fell in love with her captor. That was basically it. He treated her right, but then again, he's the only person that she interacted with for that period of time. And I do appreciate the fact that, you know, there was that, oh, okay, everybody, what am I saying? This is not an analysis of Beauty and the Beast, the animation. This is an analysis of A Court of Thorns, or an attempt at an analysis of A Court of Thorns and Roses. But basically, that is what the story was about. And I do want to say that, like I said, this book dragged. It dragged because we really didn't get a view of Tamlin as the Beast. So even though it was considered a Beauty and the Beast retelling, it was really, really vague, very, very thin. He had on a mask. She saw him. She fell in love with him. It was probably because of the abs and his golden hair, and she assumed what his face would look like behind the mask, and she was sure it was going to be pretty. And of course, she did spend a first couple of times there, like a couple of months while she was there, hating him, and then she slowly fell, like, you knew she was going to fall in love with him, right? That was not the problem. My problem, I repeat, with this book was that it dragged. My problem with this book was also the fact that Tamlin, the love interest, I'm sorry, he bored me. Tamlin bored me to tears. He was awkward. He tried to get her to like him. He had anger management issues, which I'm going to get back to in a bit. And he just, you know, it was all like, oh, Farah. I do recognize the fact that, yes, he does do things for our family, and I accept. I'm like, okay, sure, he's not an all-round bad person, but it was just more of just this guy that convinced himself he was good. And I'll get to that point in a bit. Maybe I would admit it, though. What is probably coloring my take on Tamlin right now is because I have read the rest of the books, and his behavior going forward is what is influencing my opinion of him right now. Although I'm not gonna lie, when I finished the first book, even before I read the rest of the books, I considered him one of the most boring characters in the book. He was second only to Farah, and even Farah had some important, some interesting moments. I found Tamlin bland. He did not really have much of a personality. He switched between I'm charming and I'm angry, and then I am oozing some sex appeal that I could not feel the chemistry between both of them. I was just like, okay, fine, yeah, sure, they got back together, whoop-de-doo, congratulations, good for you. I did know that as I was reading the books, I did have a problem with the fact that Tamlin did strike me as quite he had anger management issues, which is the first step towards being abusive. Now, I'm not saying this because of what happened in the later books. I'm saying this because of the instances that popped up in in this book, because he had instances where he was going to throw things and he was going to wreck a room and he was losing himself and all I was thinking is that I have anger management issues. I do not deceive myself about it. I do have anger management issues. I consider my anger kind of like an addiction, in the sense that sure, I have it under control, but I'm never going to deceive myself that I have it fully under control. Every single day is a reminder to not lose control, is a reminder to consider the more acceptable ways in which I've learned to deal with my anger that does not involve me trashing things or hurting those that are close to me, because I have been in that situation. And when I was reading this book, that was what I was thinking. I was like, okay, Tamlin does need anger management classes, because he needs to learn control. He lacked control, and you could see that in like so many little things. It was also in the way in which during Calamani. God, I kept thinking that was calamari. During Calamani, where there was this slightly rapey scene in that period, in that particular festival, that I had a problem with, especially because Farah did not. I guess the reason why it flew under the radar it will probably fly under the radar for some people, is because Farah did not see it as slightly rapey. I saw it as that, and of course there was that period when she stood up for herself and smacked him on the face and all of that. And all I'm thinking is that, yeah, but Sarah, you're giving us confusing messages. Like, 1 minute she's scared, the next minute she's turned on, and then the next minute she's slapping him in the face. And I was not gonna lie, I was like, okay, Farah obviously does not know what she's feeling at this moment. But at the same time, I actually did understand it, because sure, this is somebody she's been living with for months. She was already feeling some sort of connection and attraction to him, and for a brief moment she did want him, but then she realized that, okay, these circumstances were less than ideal, and so she reacted against that. But that is that. So yes, I did think that Tamlin had anger management issues. I do think that Sarah J. Maas did give us hints of that in the beginning of the book. So when it was that she developed that further in ACOMAF, I could see it. I did not find it surprising, because like I said, I had noticed it in ACOTAR. Now my problem also, I had a little problem with the book going forward. After I understood, I accepted and made peace with the world building, or rather the lack of world building in the book. It was easier going forward. I just accepted it like that. And when I say lack of world building, I mean, I do understand the fact that Sarah J. Maas did go into a lot of effort into describing the different chords, and trying to explain how they worked and how they played off of each other. And I appreciated that. I really did appreciate that. This book had them, I guess, it left me with questions, because I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, why are there toilets in Peruvian? Why are Peruvians wearing suits? Why are they wearing pants? What is it that they got influenced by the outfit of the mortals? How did that happen? If it was that the wall just had like small holes, is it that the few people that went through the wall learned from humans and then went back and changed things? Especially because there is mention in the later books that the way in which Peruvian females, and I'm going to get back to that in a moment, the way in which Peruvian females dressed was definitely more unorthodox, and was not, it did not take from the way human females were dressed, because Peruvian females were allowed to be sensual and sexual, and they could flaunt what they had, and the humans were more upstrung. They were not really ready or willing to let their sexuality come forth. So yes, so I was just wondering, I'm like, okay, so why are they wearing human clothing? Why are there toilets / restrooms in this in Peruvian? Peruvians apparently eat cake and human food, and I'm like, that's interesting. Like, there was rarely ever mention of fairy food, and I guess maybe because I am kind of I'm not gonna lie, in that point in time I compared it with Ollie Black's Wicked King and the Crow Prince series, because even though Ollie Black did work with the established rules of fairy, and so did not really go into that in depth of a world building, she did pull off a bit more world building that Sarah J. Maas did in this book. Yes, I also did have a problem with the villain. Amarantha was your cookie cutter villain. I did appreciate the fact that Sarah did attempt to give her justification for why she did what she did, but not gonna lie, Amarantha was just blah. And then that stupid dumbass riddle, like seriously, she could not come up with something that was harder. Although technically, I do not blame her, because if it took Farah that fucking long to figure out that shit, because I saw that riddle and in like 2 minutes I was still on the page and I'm like, oh, this answer is simple, duh. And I was just, I had to read the book and be like, seriously, Farah, seriously. I do think though that another reason why Sarah J. Maas made her take her time to solve that riddle was probably because she wanted her to pull off all those you know, what's the word I'm looking for, the challenges, you know, the challenges that Amarantha had Farah perform and all of that. So yes, that's probably also the reason why. But I was just like, please, Amarantha was just no. As a villain, she was just bland. She was very bland. I wasn't really invested as much in her story. She didn't grip me. She didn't hook me. Who gripped me though was Rhys. Oh my god, Rhysand. His first appearance in Court of Thorns, I was like, interesting. Okay, this person has something. And then in the second appearance, when he showed up while they were having breakfast, and then that scene with Tamlin and Lucien and Farah, I'm like, okay, I'm even more intrigued. And then when they got under the mountain, all the actions, I was just like, okay, this dude obviously is a grey character, morally grey. Definitely seems to be playing some long game, and I was interested in knowing what the long game was. And if you know my channel, if you know me, you know your girl loves long game. Like, I love it when people play the long game. It makes me very happy. So I was just like, okay, bless. And I would say that Rhysand definitely did elevate the story for me, because like, as of A Court of Thorns and Roses, there were only 3 characters I remotely liked and enjoyed and could stand: Lucien and Alice, and definitely Rhysand. And Rhysand elevated this story for me, which was why I gave it elevated this book for me, which was why I gave it a 2.5 stars, although I rounded it up to 3 stars on Goodreads, also because of Rhysand. Because like I said, if Rhysand had been the villain, I would have enjoyed the story a bit more. But Amarantha was the villain, and no offense, but she was just kind of drab and boring. And it only made sense because, like I said, I found the love interest in this book very boring. And then after I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, I read this baby over here, A Court of Mist and Fury. And this book, see, truly, people were right. A Court of Thorns and Roses read like a 419-page prologue, in the sense that it was an introduction to this beauty of a book. Now, this is where things picked up. This is where Farah started evolving into this character I loved and I enjoyed and I respected, and Rhysand came through, and I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck. But I was tweeting about it because I was live tweeting when I was reading the book. I could not help it. I had to share my thoughts, and someone on Twitter responded to my tweet and pointed out something very important. They were like, the reason why they think Sarah J. Maas wrote Tamlin the way she did, and with just those few signs to give us an idea of the kind of controlling personality he is because that is actually what happens with abuse victims. And I was like, that made so much sense, because think about it, the story is told from Farah's perspective. Every single thing, the way we experience Tamlin, the way she sees Tamlin, we experience Perithian, the way she sees Perithian, every single character she comes into contact with, because it's a first-person narrative, it's from Farah's point of view. We do only see a limited scope of that world. And to Farah, Tamlin is a Prince Charming. And it's understandable, because this is a girl whose mother died when she was 6. And shortly after that, her family fell into hard times, and her father sort of became, I won't say became, her father was sort of, you know, an absentee dad, in the sense that he was physically present, but he was not providing emotionally or financially or in any way for his children. So Farah at 14 had to learn to fend for herself and to take care of her family. So for the very longest time, she has been deprived of both love and affection, especially coming from those that she considers her family. So it only makes sense that the one guy who treats her half decently is a guy that she falls for and she loves, and she only sees the good in him. Which is why when he's trashing the library and he's trashing the study, she just thinks, oh my god, it's mad, blah blah blah, and she does not really start to worry or think about, okay, what this actually means. And so the very first 100 to 150 pages of this book deals with that. After the events of ACOTAR, and now Farah has become, yes, she does become, a member of the Fae. It's just a case of, okay, she has to deal with the fact that she has this new ability / powers that she's, coming to terms with because of the circumstances surrounding her being turned into a fairy. And that is where Tamlin starts to show his true self, because, see, the Farah Tamlin meets at the beginning of ACOTAR is a Farah who has been, like I said, she's been deprived of love and companionship. She did not have any friends. Her family didn't really, I would say, other than Elaine, her family were just fucking assholes. And even Elaine, sometimes Elaine was Elaine, like Reese would like to say. But she did not get enough love and companionship from her family, so she was emotionally starved, and she was also physically starved because she was starving. And the Farah who he met at the beginning of ACOTAR was weak, was dependent on him, looked to him as, an answer to everything, and had not yet and was taken away by this first time experience in this magical world. So the Farah we meet in A Court of Mist and Fury, though, has changed slightly. For one, she's dealing with PTSD. And it's sad because both her and Tamlin are dealing with PTSD. But Tamlin seems to like to bury his head in the sand. It's a character trait that when you think back about it, you see that even in getting rid of the curse, he buried his head in the sand for so long before he did a last ditch effect, and then Farah showed up. So he has shown from the beginning of the book that he does have that habit, and he continues that habit in this book, in the sense that something is going wrong with this girl you're about to marry, and you cannot see that, you cannot notice that, because you just keep, he's also self-delusional, which is sad, because it's sad when you have someone who has anger issues who is also delusional and who likes to bury his head in the sand. Like, those are three flaws on their own, and when they combine into one person, the results are disastrous, as we find out in this book. And it just made me so pissed, because this book in itself is all about Farah. A Court of Mist and Fury is about Farah as we see her slowly evolve from the withering, slowly dying woman she was, or rather female, as they keep calling her in this book, female that she was with Tamlin, to the person who owns herself and her power at the end of the book. And of course, Tamlin's anger issues still take forefront, is still exploding all over the place. And then when they're about to get married, Rhysand comes to call in, the bargain he had with Farah, which initially I was like, bitch, but then when you realize that we're in Farah's head, and before he shows up, she's clearly sending out a beacon, a cry for help. So of course Rhysand will show up. But I guess it's just funny because for the first part of the book, for someone who, they call Farah Cursebreaker, which that stupid title is so fucking dumb. But anyway, this person they call Farah Cursebreaker, that everybody is very, they appreciate, the sacrifice she made. For someone like that, for you to now turn her into this weak thing, it says more about who you are than about her. Because it just shows that Tamlin likes to be powerful, right? That is one of the things that, and it's expected. All the High Lords want to be love their powers. It was why what Amarantha really did hit them, because when you take away their power, then there's that big gap, that big hole in them that they are trying to fill. And now that Tamlin has it all back, he's overcompensating. But then what that means is that he's smothering her. And then we start to see more of his anger issues, and I'm like, okay, we saw these signs, and then it starts to escalate. And of course it's escalating because he's dealing with that, and he's also dealing with the PTSD that he has still not resolved. And then boom, there comes that period of time when Farah, who I repeat, even as a human, was not totally and completely helpless. You know, she did take down the face. She was able to trap the Suriel. She did kill some of the Nagas. Like, she did have some powers, even as human. So it only makes sense that as a fairy, she would want to do more. But the dumbass idiot who claims to love her and who is engaged to her cannot see that. And so he ends up stifling her. And when she pushes back, he does the one thing that I consider unforgivable. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh my god, Sarah J. Maas had to do this on purpose, you know, because everybody was Team Tamlin and she obviously liked Rhysand and she wanted people to like Rhysand. Now, I'm going to say it straight out. I liked Rhysand from the beginning, not because I thought it was going to be paired up with Feyre, but because I thought he was an interesting character. Tamlin, I always found Tamlin boring, and I always found him boring and with anger issues. So, yeah, that scene though, the scene where he trapped her in the house, I found that physically painful because I have been in that situation when I was way younger, when I was about 7. I had an uncle lock me up in a room because he thought I was asleep and I was too much of a bother and he did not want me on the foot, and he locked me in a room and just went out to go party with his friends on a Friday night. And I remember waking up and there's that feeling of claustrophobia, of everything pressing down and closing in on you, that just makes you start to panic and start to scream and start to look for help. And the fact that Tamlin, who has been living with her for this month, who knows that she wakes up in the night puking her guts out, who knows that she spent weeks trapped under the mountain in a very small space, for Tamlin to do something like that was fucking stupid. So of course, when Feyre got rescued, I was all for it. I was cheering that shit. I was all for that shit. Yes, it was at that point in time that I was just like washing all my, I repeat, it was never really one of my, I was never really a big fan of him in the first place, but after that I was like, boy, bye, I hope you choke. So yes, there is that. Now, that is, like I said, the concluding part of the prologue that was A Court of Thorns and Roses into the very beginning of A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, moving forward, why is it that this book haunts my soul? It's because, unlike ACOTAR and ACOWAR, where you had distinct villains, the villain of this book, the one entity that Feyre had to face and defeat, was herself, was her feelings of inadequacy, was the guilt and you know, a trauma that she was dealing with, and a belief in her own weakness. All these things. And I love that because so many times there are very few books that make your weakness and every single thing that is holding you down, that is keeping you from coming into your glorious self. There are very few books that make that the villain of the story. And Akoma does it, and I remember when I realized that, I fell more in love with this book because, yes, nothing makes me happy like a woman coming into her home. Nothing makes me happy like a strong, confident woman who realizes that, you know what, this is her power, and then she owns it. She owns it. She owns the good. She owns the bad. She owns the ugly. She owns the dark. And I loved that. I really appreciated seeing that, reading her evolution as she slowly goes from the disappearing into a self-worth of a person we meet at the beginning of the book, to the sly conniving person we meet at the end of the book. And I not only do I appreciate when a woman comes into her own power, I also appreciate it when she has somebody in her corner who sees all she is, who sees the potential of what she can be, and accepts it and loves her and nurtures it, you know, and constantly gives her choice, constantly has her back. Of course, it can be sometimes manipulative as fuck, but when she calls him out on this bullshit, he accepts that. He does not try to skirt around the issue. And that is the reason why I actually do prefer Rhysand to Tamlin. Because, see, Tamlin wanted her weak in order to, you know, feel more in control, in order to feel more like this protector archetype that he had cast himself in because of, you know, the events of ACOTAR, forgetting that this is a woman he loves, and she's killing herself, she's slowly dying, and he cannot see that. Rhysand on the other hand sees that. He sees that, and it makes him angry, and then he slowly slowly helps her come into her own. And I'm telling you, if the fact that he teaches her how to read in this book does not actually give you, like, Tamlin was the first person to know that she cannot read, right? And sure, he's cute in the sense that he writes, a limerick with the words she does not understand. I get that, but all I'm thinking is that all this while you saw that she was slowly fading into her own, while you saw that she needed a distraction, it never occurred to you to teach your bride-to-be how to read. How is she meant to manage your estate? How is she meant to manage, because apparently that's what she's good for, but how is she even meant to do that that job that you want her to do? How is she meant to do that if she cannot read? And the fact that it does not even occur to him to offer her lessons, to offer to teach her, says a lot. And the fact that the very first time when Rhysand takes her, that's the first thing he teaches her, says a lot. Because by the time he starts helping her, learn her powers, teaching her how to read, he's slowly equipping her with everything she needs to be her own person, which I appreciated, which I enjoyed, which I loved. Another thing I loved about this book was the fact that finally, Feyre has female friends. She has friends, she has girlfriends. Like ACOTAR, think about it. In ACOTAR, you cannot really consider Alice a friend because Alice was the maid and, she only saw occasionally and all of that. So you cannot really consider Alice a friend. And Nesta and Elaine were definitely not her friends. So in ACOTAR, the only friend she had was Lucien, and she was convinced she was in love with Tamlin. Okay, I'm not going to try and trivialize the love she felt, because she was in love with Tamlin at that point in time. So think about it. Lucien was her only friend, the only friend she had. That was it. Anytime Tamlin messed up, it was Lucien she could turn to, nobody else. And then we get to Akamath, and then she becomes friends with Mor. She becomes friends with Amren, and then of course there's Cassian and Azriel. But like, I love the fact that she finally does have strong female friendships, women who push her to be better, who are also as protective and as loving. And I love that. I love the fact that there was Amren, who was clearly possessed great power and Amren was just amazing. And then you had Mor, who was just fantastic and sweet and also filled with light, even though considering where she was coming from. Like, I love the fact that she had girlfriends who had her back. And then she also had Cassian and Azriel. And like, she had a family who would protect her, who would defend her, but at the same time who would train her, who would push her to be her best, to be the best, to be her best, to have control over her powers. And I love that. I definitely that I really, really love that. I also love the fact that this book, although it tells the romance between Rhysand and Feyre, for the longest time there was no romance. Like, you could feel the tension, they were going to end up together. But I love the fact that Sarah's focus for most of this book was on Feyre getting in control of her powers, discovering who she was, because like I said, the fear of who she was, how ignorant she was, how unaware she was of her own abilities and her own power, was the villain of the story. So for like more than half the book, almost 3/4 of the book, they didn't start their relationship. When they did, it was goals. Just saying. This book is easily making it to one of my top books of the year that I've read this year. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. The first part got me so pissed, which was why by the time we got to the middle and we're going to the end and Feyre was becoming Feyre, I was in love. But that ending, I lost my shit. I needed to know what happened. I needed to know what the fuck it was all about. That ending was fantastic. I'm still saying the ending was so fucking cool. Tamlin is of course fucking stupid, but as much as it pissed me the fuck off, I did say earlier that we did see signs that Tamlin has control issues. He also is self-delusional and he likes to bury his head in the sand. So it only stands to reason that he took the final decision he did in the last part of the book. Dumbass. And then I read book 3 of the series, which is A Court of Winds and Ruin. Now, I'm going to start by saying that I gave this book 5 stars. Yes, I gave it 5 stars, even though there were plot holes the size of the Pacific, even though a large part of the beginning sort of dragged, and the fact that, you know, the villain was just kind of Amarantha-ish, you know. The resolution was just too what the fuck, and Sarah did bring in, you know, the use of Deus Ex Machina to wrap things off. It was just like, okay, this was a very sudden, out of the way, out of the blues resolution to this thing, and the way it ended with the King of Iburn. I do know a lot of people are like, oh my god, what the fuck? That is totally and completely unbelievable, and you would be right, but I actually did kind of enjoy it. Now, why is it that I still gave this book 5 stars, even though I did state all the things that were wrong with it? Because your girl is pretty simple. Yeah, I am easy to please. I did mention in my rapid fire book tag video, that I am a characters over plot kind of girl. Now, in an ideal world, I would get both great characters and a great plot. Case in point, one of my favorite series of all time, Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. I repeat, that series is perfection, but we're not talking about Six of Crows now. Like, Six of Crows geology has great characters and has a great plot. But if I cannot get a great plot, but you give me characters I am invested in, characters I love, I would love that fucking book. And that was me and The Court of Wings and Ruin. Because even though there were Pacific-sized plot holes and a lot of things were resolved and there were no real stakes, especially at the end, like, yes, I do understand. Some authors like to kill important characters and leave us devastated and in pain. Looking at you, Lee Bardugo. And then there are characters like Sarah J. Maas who, you know, ensure that we all walk away, sure, a bit devastated, but still with a smile on our face and a bit of a happy ending. I like being able to reach for both books. Thank you very much. Sometimes I want a book to wreck me, and sometimes I want a book to give me hope that there is hope, you know. And yes, thank you. I like hope. Hope is good. We all need a bit of hope in our lives. But anyway, let me go back to A Court of Wings and Ruin. Now, the reason why I said I really love this book was, like I said, because of the characters. We were given more of an insight. You know, we spent more time with Morrigan, with Cassian, with Amren, with Azrael, even Elaine and Nesta and Lucian. Yes, like, these were all characters we spent more time with, and I grew to love them even more, because A Court of Mist and Akomath gave us like a hint, you know, of that relationship and how things played, and, you know, the way in which how much of a family they really are. But by ACOTAR, Farah had become part of that family, and seeing her relationship with all of them, this Amren, Morrigan, Azrael, seeing a relationship with the 5 of them, with Rhysand, with Amren, with Azrael, with Morrigan, with Cassian, it helped fill in this void. You know, I love a good story. I love a good found family trope where you have people coming together to make their own family. And I love the fact that each of them, from Cassian to Morrigan to Azrael to even Rhysand to even Farah to even Amren, technically they didn't have family. Sure, they had familial bonds, but not the type of family that they needed at the point in time when they needed them. And they came together to have that, and I really enjoyed reading that. I also love the fact that this was the book. It was in this book that Farah fully came into owning everything she was, the good, the bad, the ugly, every single thing. I loved that scene. I loved the way in which who she really was depicted on page, and I loved how she accepted it. And I love the fact that even though it would have driven other people to madness, because someone like Tamlin, for example, would probably have gone mad at that, because someone who is that self-delusional into thinking that he's a good person, you know, even though he does have his flaws and has not learned to accept all the parts of himself. Someone like that would have gone mad, but he just spoke to Farah's strength, and he just spoke to, you know, who she is. And I really loved that. I enjoyed reading that. I loved that fact. Like, Akowa for me was what Shadow, Akowa and Akomath, to be quite honest, was what Shadow and Bone would have been for me. You have an all-powerful character who is the strongest of his time, aka the Darkling, and then you have Alina, who is also the strongest of her time, you know, and then you have Mal, who, you know, had protected Alina up to this point until her powers grew, and then when she started growing even more powerful than him, he started resenting her for it, because in a way he wanted the girl of his childhood back. And that was my problem with Shadow and Bone. The fact that the love interest was somebody who basically kept wanting who Alina wasn't. You know, he wanted an Alina of the past, and that was Tamlin and Farah. And of course, this was because, spoiler alert, she does end up with Rhysand. She ends up with the person who accepts her darkness, whose darkness meets her darkness, and who accepts her darkness, and they find light together in it, which I really appreciated and I enjoyed. Now, yes, that was what I was hoping Shadow and Bone would be. That is, if the Darkling had not been a jackass, if he had been, you know, been more fleshed out as a character, and if he had not killed, you know, practically everybody that mattered to her. But like, technically, that's just basically it. This series gave me Akomath and Akowa gave me what Shadow and Bone, what Ruin and Rising failed to give me. Just saying. And that is another reason why I love this book. Love it. I would say also though that Sarah J. Maas knows how to write a good war scene, because I've read some authors' books. Resolution, especially when it's time for war, is always done so fast and so quickly, you know, and then you're like, holy shit, wait, all this war that was building up for all this while, it was resolved in like, what, 20 pages? No, this war takes a while, and I love the fact that we were there. The stakes were moving, were lifting, everything was just happening. Some characters you just kept wondering who was gonna die, who was going to survive. I really enjoyed that. I think that she does write very, very strong war scenes. Now, do I like the way in which, you know, things ended with the King of Iburn? Actually, yes, because I think it called back to what happened at the end of Akomath, you know, and I appreciated that. Maybe I'm just bloodthirsty enough, and maybe it is that I'm delusional enough to, because I know it's not believable. I don't fucking care. I like the way it ended. Sue me. I also would admit though, like, the stakes were false and not very low, because there were beings that died, you know, that I would have preferred to leave. But I do think that the reason why Sarah J. Maas did kill a lot of beings was because she did not want to kill the core set of characters. And like I said, I don't mind. Some writers are okay with that. Some writers do not like killing their darlings. I don't mind. If I want to be depressed at the end of a book about the loss of a character that an author eventually convinced me to love and appreciated, and then left me heartbroken and destroyed at the end, I would look to Crooked Kingdom. Thank you very much. But no, so yeah, I did not mind it. I did cry though at the characters that did die, you know, the ones that were on our team, or at least as much of our team as they could be, that did die in the book. That was sad. Especially, you know, there was one part that happened in the forest with Farah there and Elion's robe. Like, that was a heartbreaking scene, but I'm bloodthirsty enough to appreciate the fact, like, there were just the little things that Sarah J. Maas gave me, that she gave my bloodthirsty soul and quenched it and made me very happy. That, I'm telling, that scene alone, where Farah, when Farah is asked, what did you bring me? And then she goes, dinner, and closes the door. That, like, bumped this book by 0.5 star for me. Just that scene alone. Because the sound, reading about the screams, I closed my eyes and it was delicious because I could hear it. And it was fucking deserved. Fucking deserved. So, yes. Like I said, those are my thoughts about Akowa. Yes, and the thing with Rhysand at the end of this book, that is Okay, fine. I was about to say that was my only complaint, but I did have a couple of complaints with the book. I still gave it a 5-star, but I had a couple of complaints about the book. The thing that happened with Rhysand at the end, I'm like, I don't understand. How does this work? It still goes down to the fact that I said Sarah J. Maas does not have good world building, especially for ACOTAR. Especially, I've not read Throne of Glass yet, so I cannot say if this is general across all our books. But like there were inconsistencies. Like, why is it that what happened with Feyre at the end of ACOTAR was not what happened with Rhysand at the end of ACOWAR? Like, what changed? And then the thing with Amren, like, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people were like, oh my god, that was a cop-out. I do not care. I love Amren. I'm so happy. Thank you very much. And yes, so those were my thoughts about ACOWAR. And then there is A Court of Frost and Starlight, which it's the novella, like, considered like an in-between book between you know, the first set of the ACOTAR series, which was ACOTAR, ACOMAF, and ACOWAR, and then the next set of the series, which is hopefully coming soon. I say hopefully coming soon because I do want to read the rest of the series. I cannot wait. But yes, ACOFAS. Now, I understand everybody's problem with this. One, this is a filler book. I do not really think it should have been a standalone book. It should have probably been tacked on to the end of ACOWAR. It would have made more, sure, ACOWAR would have been bigger, but it would have made more sense. Or rather, Sarah should have just maybe released this as an ebook, like a 99-cent type ebook, because nothing really happens. This is like a very good, not even a really good, this is like an okay fan fiction. And I say okay fan fiction because I've read better fan fiction than this. This was like an okay fan fiction, you know, and I don't know, somewhere in the back of my mind, I always look at, I read it and I just pictured like what happened. Like maybe Sarah did this low-key competition whereby she reached out to fanfic writers of a series and was like, okay, who wants an opportunity of a lifetime? You can write a fanfic of, you know, the ACOTAR series, and we'll slap my name on it and we'll split the proceeds. You take 60% because you're the one that will write the fanfiction, and I'll take 40% because, you know, you're using my name. Like, that is actually how, that is what I've convinced myself, that is what I have convinced myself happened, because nothing really happened in this book. But at the same time, I do understand its existence as a filler book, you know, like the war has ended, what is happening, there should be that conversation. It gives us an idea of where each of the individual characters are at the moment. It helps us to see how each one of them in their own way deal with their PTSD, and they are dealing with their PTSD, from Feyre to Rhysand to Cassian, okay, to Elaine. Azriel always seems to be dealing with PTSD. Even more is dealing with hers, and also regurgitating the abuse she has gone through, you know, because based on Rhys's arrangement in ACOWAR, like, he's opening up old wounds, and the same goes for Nesta. So I really did appreciate that. I also love the fact that we got different perspectives from different characters, because I've always wanted to be in Cassian's head, and I've always wanted to be in Morrigan's head. I was not a big fan of being in Nesta's head. So of course I did enjoy that. I enjoyed seeing things from their perspective, even if it was just a glimpse, you know, and it was consoling, because then I was like, okay, so does that mean that maybe they would get, you know, sizable roles in the next book, like maybe actual POV, you know, in the next set of books? Because I do want to, you know, read a book from Moore's perspective, my bisexual queen. I know a lot of people believe that, like, sure, there are some people that are like, oh no, Morgan is a lesbian, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but she did say that she does enjoy having sex with men. She just has a preference for women, and as a bisexual who also has a preference for men, who also has a preference for women and non-binary folks, and men is like a 0.0000091%, but I still consider myself a bisexual, because I do still occasionally, on very rare occasions, you know, consider men as attractive, fuckable, you know, the words. So yes, I do see her as bisexual. You might say as a lesbian. That's up to you and your interpretation, but that is it. But I am sincerely hoping that we do get Moore's POV going forward. Now, I also did enjoy the fact that A Court of Frost and Starlight was basically just helping us see that wars don't just end, that everybody lives happily ever after. Because I know that there are so many books that write things like that, and I'm like, I'm sorry, that is not realistic. So yes, there's still rebuilding that has to take place. People are still having to deal with the trauma of war. There's going to be dissent, because of it only makes sense that there will be people that will be believing that whoever walks away from the winning side, so far as it is that they lost people in the war, would believe that whoever led them into war is responsible for their present situation. I enjoyed reading that. I enjoyed the fact that, okay, everybody is slowly trying to find their form of healing. yes, like I said, I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3-star because of that. My problem, and I will still stick with it, is that this book should not be a book. It should have just been 99 cents online or tacked onto the end of ACOTAR. And maybe the reason why I'm even not as pissed as every other person is because I did not pay full price for this book. I bought this book for less than a third of its price, because you best believe if I had paid $18 for this, I would have lost my fucking shit, because nope. But I would still say that it's an in-between story. It just whets my appetite for more. The sneak peek we got into the next book in the series has me so hyped, because it's told from the perspective of both Cassian and Nesta. And speaking of Nesta, sometimes I love her, sometimes I want to wring her neck, sometimes I want to hug her, sometimes I want to bitch slap her ass, sometimes I want to fall down at her feet because she's glorious, sometimes I want to spit on her feet because she's a fucking bitch. So yes, Nesta has me going, as my emotions going yo-yo. So you know that this next set of books are going to be fucking brilliant, and I want to read it. So yes, now if it is that you just went all, oh my god, Noria, you liked the ACOTAR series? Yes, I considered it fun. It was fun, it was trashy, but I have a weakness for women who discover their powers, women who come into their powers, women who embrace the dark of who they are, because society likes to tell us that we are only monoliths, that you can only be the whore or the virgin, the mother or the temptress. And I just believe that nothing makes me happier than reading books that feature women who are deliciously complicated, you know, who have their goods and their bad, and embrace every single thing, every single part of that. And you can see that from Moore to Amren to Farah to even Nesta. Elaine is the only one that I think is all good, but something tells me that she's hiding stuff, and I want to also experience that. So yes, that is the reason why I love the series so much, because of the women, because of the fact that they are messy and loyal and vindictive and vicious and caring and loving and funny and strong and bloodthirsty, and they fit so many things I admire and appreciate in women, because you cannot pigeonhole them, you cannot fit them into a nice little box that makes you happy, and that makes me happy. So yes, that is my not really a review of A Court of Thorns and Roses, of the ACOTAR series. If you are still shocked that I liked it and you're like, holy shit, we're taking your intellectual card, all I can say is that you do you, boo. This is me being honest. Yeah, I do like some trashy shit. Oh yes, before I forget, I had a problem with the amount of time that there was male and female mentioned in this book. Like it was said so many times. I understand the fact that there is separate she's, and it's the reason why I might probably explain why it is that they keep going or male female. Like that was how someone explained it to me, because like they are not human, so they don't want to use man woman. I don't care. It was annoying. I know a lot of people had a problem with the mate, the constant mate, because there was a lot of mates in the series, and all I'm thinking is that as much as it annoyed me, it did not piss me off that much. Do you want to know why? Because your girl spent a decade of her life reading paranormal romance stories. Not just paranormal romance story, paranormal werewolf romance stories. So do you know what that means? I have read books with mate storylines that are way worse than the ACOTAR series. Like there are some things that could be worse than the ACOTAR series as far as the mate thing is concerned. Trust me. And then also with your mate part and all of that, I don't even know if they really said mate a lot, but your girl used to read Christine Feehan. Yes, Christine Feehan dark series, dark Carpathian stupid series. Firstly, that series is still ongoing. Your girl loves a good series. You know, I already mentioned, like I said in my rapid fire book tag, I love long series, but that series is over 20 something books long, and has exceeded its usefulness, and it's just like nope, because it's the same set of characters, the same plot line, everything is just recycled and just annoying. But the way mate, because there's a part in Aquafast where Risan talks about how, you know, he's so much older and Farah is just turning 21, and you know, is just worried about the age gap. And I'm like, Risand, you're a much better person, because I just flashed back to Christine Feehan's Carpathian, Dark Carpathian series, and I remember the fact that those people were just basically picking up, like, I want to see color, my mate. Like, they are worse books, people. They are worse books, and I've read them, and it is a very, very, very sad world, because some things are worse. Just saying. So yes, that's my, not really a review of the ACOTAR series. I'm sorry if my voice sounds odd and stuff. I have a bit of a cold, and yeah, your girl just had to record this because I just finished the series and it's fresh off my brain, and like I said, I did not keep any notes. And if it made any sense, please be a kind person. Please be kind and let me know down in the comments below. If I made no sense, please be kind and let me know down in the comment below. If you stayed ACOTAR, please be kind and let me know down in the comment below. If you loved ACOTAR series, please let me know down in the comment below. And yes, if you like this video, please do not forget to give it a thumbs up. Check out my other videos, subscribe if you want to. I make new videos every Sundays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and I will see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself,